There. Hello.
Oh,
Good
hello.
morning. Early slot today, Mark. Mark, you had an entertaining evening. How are you feeling?
Not too bad. Better than the last time, which is weird. Like, because the last time was one of those nights where you don't intend to drink too much, and then it all spirals. Whereas last night I was like, I'm going out to the beer festival. I'm gonna have some good times. I actually don't feel too bad. But
You're
I
looking a bit pale. I might just put a bit of colour in your face. There we go.
There we go. Oh, I feel so much better. Now I feel like I'm getting sunburnt.
Good. How was it to be out and about in the wild?
It was weird. It was weird. Like I was,
Yeah.
I couldn't work out if I was excited or if I was anxious about going. Um, but yeah, it was odd, but it was I think so. It was nice. So I saw some people from like school days there, which
Yeah.
was that was crazy to see.
That's right.
But
Awesome.
didn't
Well,
venture for an awkward conversation.
excellent. Well, my non 30 days of tools update is Finley went to nursery this morning, which was awesome because he was an absolute nightmare last night. Would not sleep, moaning, waking up like every 10 minutes. So
Oof.
handing him to nursery for the first time, like Sarah was just like, "Here you go." Like we thought it would be like this big emotional thing. It was kind of like, yeah, you drove us mad last night. We're both so tired. Like, you take this child. Um,
Yeah.
but they've got a fancy app where they send you lots of pictures and updates, and he seems to be alright. Seems to be having a
Oh,
good
my
time.
kid.
Um, so yeah, that's my update. So welcome to 30 Days of Tools. We are here to basically do a live stream every day where we go through the challenges of 30 Days of Tools. If you're not familiar what it is, it's a challenge a day throughout October, centered around automation and tools. We basically ask you a question or give you a challenge, and you take part of it to boost your education, boost your learning, share your expertise and experiences with other people, and just generally get the community, centralized, focused on a specific topic, which we chose tools. And
Mhm.
on Thursday, we have a test.bash, which is our technical automation focused test bash, which is going to be awesome. So let's get on to challenge 26.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a good one. What advice would you give someone new to using testing tools? And then framing from Simon, we've got what do you wish you knew when you first got started using testing tools? How can you share your advice in a helpful way without overwhelming someone? And what would help someone take a tool aware approach? That's today's challenge. So, uh,
Hmm.
I can think of a few
Advice.
things.
Yeah. Go on then,
I think my
because I
first
can't.
thing someone would have the first thing I would have loved to learn is kind of what's come up already. Like, I think we had a what makes a testing tool. I think challenge, one of the early 5 challenges was what makes a
Yeah.
testing tool. And I think that would have really helped me if someone had just said, look, don't worry, you don't have to use testing tools. Like, use
Hmm.
whatever is going to help you, get through the job, and don't feel like you're not as skilled or superior if you're using a combination of tools to do something, and this you know that there's a one tool you could use, but you're not there yet. So I think that's my first thing is like, what is a testing tool? We can go back to that thread, but just think of it as, what can I use? What's going to make my life easier?
Yeah.
What can I use that's just going to accelerate me, or just make me slightly happier, remove a bit of friction? I think that would have been useful to hear. Whereas you always felt that you had to learn specific tools, or if you Google in specific tools, you talk about the art of Googling, right? You're always adding the word testing
Hmm.
in there. Whereas
Yeah.
that sends you down one street in Google. Um, so I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
That kind of triggers a thought for me. Is some advice is around that sort of being able to reflect on what it is that you're doing. So don't think of your testing as just a black box. Like, take the time to think about what is it that you're actually doing as you're testing. What are the different activities? And it doesn't matter if you're doing exploratory testing or executing test cases, um, or sort of ad hoc testing somewhere in between. But actually, yeah, thinking about what it is that you're doing and start to recognize those patterns in what you're doing, because that's where you'll see those opportunities come through, rather than sort of I remember my early days were just sort of, head down, get on with it, and not really actually take stock of the testing I was doing. So
Yeah.
that'd be the advice I'd give, or at least like facilitate some sort of space to have that reflection afterwards.
And I think I would also, they emphasize there's no need for mastery. It's not a sprint, right? It's a small like increments. Like start now, give it a go, and you don't have to download a tool and suddenly expect to know it the next day.
Yeah.
And I think that's it with the overwhelming thing. Again, it's just like, look, have a system. I think that's one other thing that you mentioned. You had your wiki, and I used to use Twitter and blogging as my little system. Have a system to so you just don't forget. Like you see something awesome, you see a tweet, you see a talk, you see whatever it is. Just have a system, whatever works for you. It could be emails, it could be a Trello board, it could be your own wiki, it could be publicly sharing that you've got a list of things you want to do. But whatever it is, have a system. And then more importantly, on top of that, make time to go through that system. Otherwise, it just becomes unwieldy. Like I tried to use liking on... I liked things on Twitter and that added it to Trello. And it got out of hand because there was genuine tweets I wanted to like, and then my Trello board just became an absolute mess. So it came... it's Post-it notes on the wall, which again is an absolute mess. And so, you've got to have a system just so you don't forget, because you can't do it all in real time. Like it's just... it's too much.
I think that's it. It's not about... It's that whole... I never quite remember which way, but it's that specialist in generalness or generalized specialist. Whichever way.
Generalist.
That idea of, it's okay to know a little bit about lots of things, because it goes into that sort of expert mindset of you're an expert when you don't know anything. So it's that attitude of like there's going to be I know when a problem's going to be presented to me that I have the ability to at least try and solve it, but I don't necessarily know what the solution is at the moment. And I think honing that is better than like just saying I know all these tools and stuff. Which is always the thing I would get frustrated with, like CVs and stuff. If you just list tools, that's not great. I want to hear about you and how you solve those problems.
Well, I think I'll go to this tangent just because it's there. And like they did one of my little funny videos on LinkedIn a couple of days ago, and comments off that were, "Oh, Richard, now you've spent 6 months doing that, you can add all this to your LinkedIn profile. Use this, done this, done that." And I was like, it reminds me of a tweet where I said, all that stuff's pointless. Like, great, you use page objects, but why? Great, you've used Selenium, but why? Like, I want to hear the why, because if I hear the why, I know you can apply that in any context. I know you could come into my context or my company and be like, I know how to assess this, how to understand it and make a decision on a tool. Not you just know Selenium, because what if I don't use Selenium, I might just be discarding your CV, whereas actually what you did was chose the most appropriate tool, but that's not what you've written down.
So maybe that's like, to sort of make that more succinct, is like, it's not really like the advice you can give is it's not really about the tool, it's about the journey. And it's learning to become comfortable with that journey and recognize it.
And also the journey, but the value that adds, the experiences that you got from that, what you're able to do with the team and the testing you were able to do because of it. He said it's the journey of like progressing, but also everything that you take in along the way. But like the other thing that reminded me of the first tangent was so we're talking about ways of potentially staying tool aware and like resources and useful things about tools. But I think one of the other things is, so I'm going to ask you, I'm going to share how I do it, but I don't know how you do it. Like I've got very good memory, so I can remember like really stupid things that you shouldn't be. Anything like just sticks in there, and I'm quite good at recalling it. So I tend to rely on my memory to remind me of tools. But I know like a lot of other people have they blog their experiences with the tools, they make courses, they do lunch and learns. Like, so what have you done to kind of like cement knowledge about tools?
So obviously earlier you mentioned like things like wikis, that private wiki that I created, and then that turned into into a personal blog. I started creating blogs for that sort of stuff. But it goes back to what I was saying before. Like, I don't really remember tools anymore now. Like, but what I do is I have a certain set of patterns that I know to, like, I know when I'm looking at a situation, there may be a tool that either exists or is something that could be built to solve that problem.
Yeah.
And then I know I have certain patterns in terms of like how I Google things, how I search for stuff. I know, like, I've got quite a lot of bookmarks for different resources and stuff to go and search for those places and that sort of thing.
Nice.
So I find, like, yeah, that's my tool awareness, is being aware that I can use tools. It's not necessarily knowing that I have that list. Nice. And then I think, yeah, like, I do remember some, because the more you use them, the more they kind of lodge in your brain. I think there's something about, I'm always interested about, why is it that I've remembered that thing? Why am I drawn to this thing? I think that sort of, obviously you might not be able to rationalize it, but it speaks to something maybe a little bit lower down in your subconscious. That's like your brain's going, you should remember that because I think that's going to be useful. So there's an element of that, but yeah, I think it's more, it's the more abstract meta sort of, like, my tool awareness is my ability to find them, and the patterns and skills I have, rather than be able to necessarily call them back.
To go back to the original question, then, I think the advice you would give is probably not about tools. Like, it's probably more about, we did this in automation testing, 99-minute workshop last week. It's about the ability to spot the opportunity for a tool, or just to spot the opportunity where you feel like it can be easier. You feel like this shouldn't be this hard. Like, there's friction. There's things that are slowing you down, or there's ideas that you have that you can't do because you don't have the right. It's listening to things like that, and then, as you said, then having a system that you go into to start Googling, to start researching, to ask the community, to jump on Slack, to formulate that question, which then usually will lead you to a selection of tools. But then again, to go on the other way around, is the other side as well, is giving yourself, one of the early challenges, again, mentioned this, like a radiator of information. It could be Twitter, it could be newsletters, could be blog feeds. Yeah. And that's kind of going the other way. That's you actively making yourself tool aware, so that you don't need to do the searching when the problem arises. But either way, it always resorts back to this: where's the pain? Where's the friction? Where's the struggle? Or where's the sense of, this is so boring, there's got to be a better way of doing this. Like, we're meant to be in the fun world of software. Like, why is this so tedious? Like, and then that triggers you to go, right, let's use a tool.
There's a book I'm reading at the moment, I've just started, called The Serendipitous Mindset, and it's sort of looking at some of the science behind serendipity, and like how certain people have like what they call like a serendipity field, which is kind of the same sort of principle as your radiator. And I'm very early on in the books and stuff, so there's a lot to sort of read around it. But the impression I get is it's about sort of almost kind of putting markers in place, making those connections, but not necessarily making those connections to achieve a goal, but because you have all those connections, like you have your radiator, you have your field, that and it talks a lot about being aware of serendipitous moments, is that you actually, when you see something and you go, oh, that thing connects to that thing and this thing and this thing, that happens in that sort of serendipitous ways, because, and it's to bring it back to the tool aware stuff, is you spent the time to sort of establish those little markers here and there about the tools, and then you have this moment and you go, aha, okay, and then it kind of all kind of connects together. So I wonder, if that pattern is similar to being like tool aware, is that it's about being serendipitous with tools in your testing of, oh, hey, this thing's interesting, maybe that would work with that. Oh, it does, brilliant. And then over time you develop like because you remember that relationship, so then it becomes part of your toolkit, because you're like, I remember the last time I used that. So like my for loop in JavaScript console, like the first time, that was serendipity, but now it's in my back pocket and I'll use it when I can. Yeah, it's interesting.
I like it. So, if you were going to capture all your tool knowledge at the moment, Mark, what kind of method would you take right now?
Well, how would I capture it? Well,
Yeah.
I would use the tool directory at Ministry of Testing. You thought I was going to say the B word, didn't you? But yeah, that.
Set up the Stream Deck and everything.
But yeah, if you want to learn about tools, you can also read my book.
But it's taking me too long to go and get over. Like my mouse, like where's the mouse? Where's the right sound effect?
And leaning.
Ended up like pressing, like the wrong noise. Like actually, I should use the airport announcement, shouldn't we? Like this one. Did you know that Mark Winteringham is writing a book about API testing? If you have a few moments whilst waiting at your gate, head over to Richard's bookstore. Anyway, right, let's have a look at what the community's been up to. So, I've got Christoph again. Christoph, absolutely smashing it, mate. Well done.
Yeah, doing a great job.
So let's have a look what he's put. So the tool that people use isn't always the right tool, or when people suggest a tool, it's mostly based on. Before diving into the tool, try it out in a different application, play with it a bit. So I find interesting there is like kind of like don't immediately try and apply it to your context. So like have a play with the tool. Like we talk about the 10-15 minute little hack, with the not hack, sorry, like hello world little exercise just to get immediately comfortable. Because I think we've had the same. If you dive into your actual problem and you end up like in bookmark central with like 1,000 tabs open to try and do this thing that you can't do because you don't know enough about the general makeup of the tool. That you're trying to make the tool do something that you don't even know the basic wording of the tool. You don't know the domain knowledge of the tool, so you kind of get a bit stuck. And then he's actually said it there for us. He's like start at the start. If you're writing any docs for other people, start at the very beginning. Install this, set up that, make sure you've got this configured. I think that again, I keep thinking about this doctor that we keep describing, but like that is it. It's like this. It's an automated beginner guide of saying make sure your system is configured, correctly.
There's something as well, like talking about like the tool that people use isn't always the right tool, and that sort of element. I think there's another thing to be mindful of that I would advise as well is try not to let your ego get in the way. So. The story that you and I have told about me fighting that batch script when we were doing some training in Sweden. I spent 3 hours screaming at it, and you were just like, go ask the community, and I was like, no, I'm going to solve it. No, I'm going to solve it. It's my own time I'm wasting, and yours as well. But if I'd have just gotten over myself a little bit and just gone and asked for help earlier, that problem would have been solved as well. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask for support and help, because that's going to help you move quicker through stuff.
Absolutely. There's a few things coming in actually on the chat. Yeah. So hello Eva, and hello Rest of Test, and hello Simon as well. And the community boss is back in gear, and he's fit and healthy and getting all these link ninja in for us. I'll go jump at Rest of Tester's comment. I think it's very hard to define a hello world for test automation, but you've mentioned. Let me see if I can stick this on the screen in a pleasant way. Probably not. Not too bad. If we define a hello world and test, what would you say it would be? Would it be iframes? Like I think probably not. Iframes is quite niche, but top of my head would be something to the normal. So open a page, navigate, fill in a field, click a button, like kind of the basic things you string together. Iframes for me would be, I know you're laughing, I know you've done it intentionally, right? But iframes would be a little bit too niche. Like if you dived into a brand new tool trying to get straight into iframes, you would struggle. But it is great example of a context dependent thing when someone is new to using test tools, that there is certain tools are very good at certain jobs.
It's why I was kind of motivated by things like creating things like RESTful Booker and like the button, and why tools like the internet exist, not the internet, but like the whole internet. No, but like the site where you can actually practice certain elements and stuff with HTML and stuff, is that there's actually an opportunity there as well, because one, you're building something that's kind of outside of like your normal working context. So I can make something that's really easy to automate, and then I can try different tools, and then I know if there's a resistance there, the resistance is with the tool, not with the application. Problem is, you try and do that in a working application that has problems and stuff, then that becomes a bit of a mess. But then there's also an opportunity as well, is that you can actually, by building those tools, you're learning as well. So I learned JavaScript I learned how to do like stuff in Node specifically because I needed to build this API. So there's that sort of useful element as well.
We've never had the streams so alive. It's only 3 people,
great.
But this is awesome. This is great. So Dave Hefner, the guy who I think he's still currently at Apple Tools, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, he built the internet. I don't think it's had a lot of attention recently, but it's a great place. So we've got a comment here as well before we move on by Eva. I'll just stick this on the screen. Any thoughts on the use of internal documentation might be useful to document how tools are used? Absolutely. So there's actually, if any of you are coming to test.bash on Thursday, Butch hasn't, I don't know if Butch will see this, but I complained about someone's video not zooming in on code on Twitter. That was Butch's video. So I ended up watching the whole of Butch's video to make sure that you could see the code. And he actually refers to his own docs on several occasions. It's quite funny. He tries to do... He runs a Docker command and he gets it wrong, right? And Docker starts downloading the whole internet. and then he goes, by the power of the internet, we are done. And then when he comes back, he goes, yeah, I wasn't done. I had the wrong command. So I went to my docs and they're useful. Yeah, but I think documentation for your own internal frameworks, your own internal custom tools, just your own approach to automation. Absolutely. Because a lot of tools just have, standardized things like skip and ignore, right? Think of a test framework. So Louise has made me think of test frameworks. But yeah, if you think of skip, ignore, retry, you can even skip for a number of days at the moment. Like you can do loads of things, but the way that you use that in your company is varied. So we might be skipping because it's broken. We might be skipping because we know the feature isn't ready yet. Like knowing why you use certain features is absolutely critical, and also just the custom little niches that you might have, like IT, security, like lots of stuff that just gets in the way. Anyway, add anything on that, Mark?
No, I mean I agree that I think it is useful to communicate that sort of stuff, because I think also you think about like all those teams you end up working on where you've got 3 different teams building 3 different frameworks. That's not what you want. Yes, it may be like there might be a situation in which like those 3 different teams are very different contextually. But then there are other times when it's a case of everyone's just working on the same platform. So actually having like those teams work together to build something, I think can sometimes be really useful. And that's where things like internal documentation can be really useful as well, because that can be a place to start as well, to just have those conversations. Because I think also internal documentation doesn't have to be just about how-tos, but also, how do we project manage these tools as well? So I'm thinking a lot about Isabel Evans and the work that she's been doing around sort of almost like that product owning of automation tools and the user experience of automation tools as well. So there's a story I told before in the past about the developer who made the amazing framework. It was glorious to look at and it was so cleverly crafted, but there's no documentation about it. And I, like for myself, who's someone who's just getting into this space, I found it incredibly impenetrable and quite scary to use. I genuinely had those sort of fear feelings. So yeah, stuff like that can, like internal documentation, sort of that sort of explanations of things and what its roadmap can be really useful.
Quick question for you, Mark. Have you ever read RBP's documentation? As in troubleshooting. Have you ever read your own documentation?
I mean, yeah, because I wrote it. I don't really understand the question.
So, we were talking about being useful. Have you ever gone back to RBP's docs to help it trigger you to remember how to do something?
I see what you mean. Yeah. No, not really. I suppose like for links to things, because obviously there's a lot of like
Okay.
log files and stuff like that. So that sort of stuff, yeah, remembering links to stuff, but no,
No.
not really, because it's all kind of, yeah, it's all kind of in here.
Cool. Okay. Mark, Louise Gibbs, what's she saying?
Yes. I'm going to just call this up on my screen because I can see it a bit better. So,
Zoom in as much as usual.
yeah, that you don't always have to use the tools that you were given. I think that's true. Like something I sometimes forget about some of the positions I was in roles is that I was actually quite privileged to have like agency in the things that I was using. And I forget some of the bad times when I was like sort of more junior, where I was more like you have to use these things. But yeah, I absolutely agree with Louise. And I remember a thing again. It was Alan Richardson, Evil Tester. He shared around, something about sort of you follow the letter of the law, but not the spirit. So when he was told. He was told that he wasn't allowed to install his own tools onto the machine. He was like, fine. So he put them all on a USB drive and then booted off the USB drive, which is that is so Alan. But I like that idea. You do still have some agency. So I think, yeah, that sort of element of encouraging people to be like, it's okay. You can use your own tools. Although, equally, be careful, because what you don't want to do is install an alpha build of a security testing tool onto a VM, then go on holiday for a week and then find out that it's actually hoovered up all the bandwidth of the whole organization and killed the internet for a whole company, because you get very angry.
Naming no names there? No names? No.
But that was me.
Let's carry on.
Cool. I think the best way is to step back and let them
I
experiment.
like this one. I think this is a good
I
one.
like
I've been given tools by people and they're so eager for me to use it, like they're just watching my every move. It's like, go on, use it, go on. And then they're looking at you to like have a certain reaction. I do this in real life, like not away from tools. Like, you've built so that, I don't know, like you've made dinner for someone and you're like, right, I want to see if they like it. I really want to see them go, wow, that was really nice. And when you don't get it, you're kind of like, what the so you just gotta let people just have a play with them. Like, I absolutely agree. Don't shadow, don't stand over them, don't put pressure on them, and you'll probably learn more that way as well about the actual tool itself.
And it goes back to that serendipity idea, and like Louise put this perfectly at the bottom, with like a tool-aware approach cannot exist unless the person has the freedom to actually try out other options, and that's it. It's like the whole serendipity element is that there's a certain amount of maybe like focused randomness. That's probably not the right term, but that idea of allowing yourself that freedom is gonna make things more engaging. But yeah, you are going to discover those things, those experiences, which might be useful later on.
Absolutely. And then either how can you share advice and help away, like pairing, that always comes up a lot. We talk about that in AIT quite a bit. And it works both ways as well, pairing. Like you if they are junior and new, then it's likely that you're going to have more ideas for them. But again, because they're greenfield, they're going to be like coming at this completely fresh. They've got no biases, they've got nothing like that. They'll be like, actually, can I do something like this? Can I do something like that? And they'll come out with some really interesting questions. So yeah, it's a great opportunity to learn a lot there.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, excellent stream. I'm going to have to keep the end short and sweet because we've got 5 minutes for our workshop.
Literally registering to attend our workshop right now.
So thank you all for tuning in. Really love the engagement. That's something that's really appealing to us, and we are actually considering doing something on a continuous basis around some sort of stream. We don't know what yet, but whatever it will be, we'll absolutely we rely on engagement, and it's really nice to see you all listening and watching. We hope you all have a great day, whatever you're up to, and we will see you tomorrow for day 27.
And cheers.
What is that?
That is my beer festival glass.
Oh, nice. All right, see you all tomorrow for day 27. Have a good evening.
See you later.
Have a good
Bye.
afternoon and